Have you ever noticed that the more deeply you reflect, the more distant you feel from the world around you? Like the clearer your thoughts become, the fuzzier your connections with others get? You're not imagining things. There's an unspoken reality that society rarely admits. Deep thinking often leads to quiet isolation. Not because the thinker has withdrawn, but because the world quietly steps back. From ancient sages to modern-day philosophers, history is full of brilliant minds who lived on the edge of society, not for lack of relevance, but because they saw what others chose to ignore. They weren't outcast by choice. They were exiled by discomfort, because deep thought is dangerous, not in a violent way, but in a subtle, subversive, and often invisible way. It pokes at the foundations most people build their lives on: beliefs, norms, comfort zones. Deep thinkers don't destroy illusions. They simply illuminate them. And that light can be blinding. But why does this happen? Why do people instinctively pull away from those who think differently? To answer that, we need to explore how we react to different kinds of superiority. When we meet someone who's physically powerful, we might feel a sense of awe, maybe even safety. Their strength doesn't challenge us, it impresses us. When someone is wealthy, we may feel envy, but we still admire their success, maybe even hope to emulate it. These forms of power are external. They exist outside the self. They don't make us question who we are inside. But intelligence is different. Intellectual superiority doesn't stay on the surface. It touches something deeper: our identity, our worldview, our sense of being right about how the world works. And when someone comes along who questions that, even silently, our mind interprets it as a threat. This reaction is known as cognitive dissonance, the discomfort we feel when confronted with ideas that clash with our existing beliefs. And instead of confronting the discomfort, most people deflect it. They tune out. They laugh it off. Or worse, they label the thinker as arrogant, difficult, or weird. The real issue? They're not threatened by the person. They're threatened by what that person represents: a mirror, one that reflects back all the thoughts we've never dared to think. It's not about how smart you are, it's about how deeply you see. And when you see too deeply, you start to notice things most people are trained to overlook. The emptiness behind small talk, the contradictions in culture, the hollowness in praise, the fragility in certainty. You begin to ask questions others avoid. Questions like, why are we chasing this? Who benefits from this system? Is this truly meaningful or just familiar? And the moment you start asking those questions out loud, you can almost feel the room shift. People glance at their phones. They change the subject. They smile politely, but never follow up. Not because you're boring, but because your thoughts wander into territories most people aren't ready to visit. And that's where the loneliness sets in. Not just the absence of people, but the absence of understanding. It's possible to be surrounded by company, yet starving for connection. To have conversations that sound full but feel empty. To hear laughter and still feel like a ghost in the room. Because once your mind expands, it becomes harder to shrink it back to fit into everyday spaces. You begin to crave something more. Depth over distraction, truth over trends, meaning over noise. But that craving comes at a cost. Isolation, alienation, misunderstanding. So what's the solution? Do you dull your mind just to feel included? Do you hide your questions so others feel comfortable? No. You stay true to the frequency you're tuned into. Because the world needs thinkers. Not just talkers. Not just followers. But thinkers. Those who ask the hard questions and sit with the uncomfortable answers. You might not fit in everywhere, but when you do find your people, the connection is electric. You don't have to explain your thoughts. They're already halfway there. You don't have to hold back your curiosity. It's matched, even challenged. These connections are rare, but they are real, and they're worth the wait. In a world of surface-level chatter, deep thinking is rebellion. In a culture addicted to certainty, doubt is a virtue. In a society that fears truth, honesty is radical. So if you've ever felt like your thoughts are too much, or your questions are too intense, remember this. You're not broken. You're awake. An awakening is lonely at first, but eventually you realize you weren't made to blend in. You were made to illuminate. So keep thinking, keep questioning, keep peeling back the layers. Because even if the world doesn't understand you now, one day someone will stumble across your thoughts and feel a little less alone. And in that moment, your solitude becomes a signal, a beacon, a reminder that deep thinking is not a curse, it's a calling.